Hello everyone. There's quite a few things that have been happening over the last few weeks that I wanted to touch upon briefly. One of them being, yesterday we had an internet outage. Conspiracy theorists will say that this is the internet outage, the blackout that was due to come. It could be, I don't know. The fact is that Rogers, one of our service providers, went down for the most part of the day yesterday. I was personally affected by it. It affected my cell phone and my internet, and it affected half of the country. So we have two service providers, Bell and Rogers, and the major issue that's come out of this is we should have either more companies that have ownership and control over the infrastructure, or it should be owned publicly so that this doesn't happen again. There needs to be some sort of backup. There needs to be some sort of change in the infrastructure. The other issue is that we're paying through the nose for these services. We pay more than anybody in the world for these services. And most Canadians have issue with Rogers and Bell because of the control they have. So this is leading into a solution, which would be blockchain, or the new technology that's coming, feeding into blockchain. The issue that caused it is still under investigation. They're claiming they don't know what caused it. They're not ruling out a cyber attack, but it's kind of irrelevant. It doesn't really matter what caused it, because the issue is that it happened, which was unprecedented. This has never happened before. They're saying, Rogers is saying that it affected their core hub, which is why the whole system went down, and the walls that they've built between territories also failed. So this is a major issue, and people are calling for an investigation into it, this sort of thing, because it affected cell phone, television, internet, and home phone, and 911, trains, planes, businesses, banks. We couldn't use debit. Some ATMs were out of service, and so most people were reverting to cash or credit card, and in some cases they couldn't even use credit card. So it was a very strange experience to see a lot of people tentatively using cash again. They had a very strange relationship with cash after the whole CV issue of you shouldn't be using cash because it is dirty. So this is a big deal, and this on the heels of everything else that's happening at this time in a very confined period of time, feels like a switch. It feels like a hurdle, or it feels like we've come to a point where things are going to ramp up. And there were a couple of events in the recent past that had ramping up in the codes. Perhaps this is what it's alluding to. The other thing that happened the other day, this is July 1st, so it happened a few days ago. Jordan Peterson is an outspoken activist, professor. I think he got fired from his professorial job for being too outspoken. He is a pretty famous Canadian opinion maker, and he doesn't mince words. He's controlled opposition. He is a prominent face or voice against the left wokeism. And he made a comment on Twitter and got banned for it. And the comment was to do with E-Page having breasts removed and not using the appropriate pronouns. It was flagged as hate speech, and he was kicked off Twitter. He says he's not going to change, he's not going to remove the tweet, and he's not going to change his stance. He'd rather die. So he's making a big deal out of it to draw attention to this issue. What this is also leaning into is, first of all, the absurdity of wokeism and woke language and woke talk, and the necessity for us to be all speaking the same language. We all have to say the right thing, or there's something wrong with you. You're a horrible person and you don't deserve to have a voice. You don't deserve to speak. So for someone like him who doesn't go along with what the mainstream says, you have to use these pronouns, you have to speak this way, you can't say these things, he gets silenced. And he's speaking out saying this is wrong. And the irony that he's allowed to say it on YouTube, but he's not allowed to say it on Twitter, is kind of funny. This ties into this documentary I came across called What is a Woman? This is another wokeist nonsense that's going on around with people not knowing what a woman is and not knowing how to define a woman, because it seems like a campaign designed to erase women from existence, which is the idea of dead naming. You're not allowed to refer to a trans person's previous identity as having existed at all. And it is trying to erase the existence of women. It's a very strange phenomenon, this idea that what is a woman, and people don't know what a woman is, and then a man can be a woman and a man can get pregnant. I mean, it's total utter nonsense, and yet people believe it, and people repeat it, and people say this nonsense. Lately I've noticed that people don't even know how to spell woman. Woman is WOMAN. The plural for women is WOMEN. I've noticed a trend where people refer to woman in the singular as women. And then there's also the trend of replacing the E with a Y, which totally erases the definition of woman. It is offensive. So this is very strange, and I think what this is the false consciousness, the threatened false consciousness, is sensing the rise of the divine feminine, or the rise of the feminine force, Sophia, Venus. She's rising. She's coming into her power, and it is sensing this threat. So it's attacking the feminine. It's attacking the women. Now, I came across this documentary called What is a Woman? And I watched it all. It's very painful to watch this because of the way some of these people think. These people, I'm not going to play any of this because this video gets taken down. So if I play it, I don't want to get a strike. I will leave a link to it though if you want to go watch it. But the way these people talk is insane. These people are insane. And they make no sense. Their thinking defies logic and reason and common sense. And a lot of the people he talks to are inaccessible, and yet, okay, you could argue he's making a documentary, but it's not easy to get people to talk to you if you're an unknown filmmaker, regardless of the fact that you're making a documentary. He gets access to Jordan Peterson. He gets access, like a sit-down, face-to-face meeting with Jordan Peterson. He flew to Toronto. He has access to this Canadian who went to jail for defending the right for his daughter to not have trans surgery at the age of 12, because he argued that she's not old enough to make that decision. However, because his wife said no, she should, because she believes that she's trans and we have to respect her wishes. So he got thrown in jail for this. This was highly publicized tragedy in Canada, and he got this guy on the phone. This guy was incredibly eloquent, incredibly well spoken, as are all of the other people he interviewed. This reads to me as a tragedy. I hope by now you understand what I mean by tragedy. He, to me, is controlled opposition, putting out the opposing angle on this issue. He was asking people, what is a woman, and getting non-responses and confused looks and a lot of the sort of insane reactions from these people on the, I guess, on the left. I'm not very political, so I don't really know left-right lingo or whatever that stuff is, but I'm gathering that that's what this is that these are leftists. Their lack of reasoning, their lack of common sense, their lack of logic flies out the window. It just comes to light when he shines the logic on it. It doesn't make any sense. It just falls apart. So in that way, it's very hard to watch. He interviews people on the street. This is a trans person. Interviews a therapist. There was also a person who transitioned, committed suicide. People who transitioned, a man who transitioned and had complications, and there was nowhere for him to get any advice, nowhere for him to get any help. He's basically shortened his life because of it. He's talking to these people in Africa about what's going on here with this movement and getting laughed at, basically. These people don't understand what he's talking about, that this isn't something that happens in Africa, in this culture. So he doesn't understand what he's talking about. So I mean, I don't, like I said, I think that this is controlled opposition. These people are too well spoken. These people, they don't stumble over their words. They don't have any moments hesitation. The way they speak is just sounds so scripted. When I talk, I have a hard time not using the words and so and it bothers me. It bothers me that I can't talk as eloquently as these people. I have practiced at talking and practiced at making videos, and I still stumble over my words. I stumble over my thoughts. I stumble over how to get words out and pause to think about what the next word is. It's normal. These people just spit out words like scripted or programmed into them. This is all folding into the bigger issue of my body, my choice. Who has the right to say what goes into your body? Who has the right to say what you do with your body? Apparently, they're trying to tell us that we do not have the say, but young children apparently have the right to say what they can do with their body. It's a very confusing, convoluted issue. It's deliberately confusing and convoluted because of whatever their agenda is in this aspect, which I'm sure you have some idea of what that is. The next thing that happened is the Georgia Guidestones were allegedly blown up. CERN got switched on for the first time in 3 years because it was under construction or under repair, and the NASA of particles churns out some cartoons, and then this happens. So some people are drawing a connection between the two. I don't think there is a connection between the two. It's pretty funny. Regardless, the CERN, to me, CERN is not a concern. I don't pay attention to CERN. Georgia Guidestones being blown up. To me, this just indicates that there's a switch happening. The fact that this has happened in conjunction with all of the other events that have happened in the last couple of weeks, to me, is highly suspicious. That is not a coincidence. It is deliberate. The timing is deliberate. It's a message. To me, it's a message that we're moving on to a new phase and things are about to ramp up. And there's so many things happening right now. That's really all I think this is. Then in Japan, the former prime minister, he was on a campaign trail and he was assassinated. They caught the guy, of course, and he died. He was 67. If you want to make something out of that, it could be 6 times 7 is 42. There's a lot of yellow on Thursday. Jupiter, 42. It's another by the numbers situation. Then you have Boris Johnson in the UK. He resigned because about 5 members of his cabinet resigned. So he realizes, well, if they're resigning, then it's probably me. So he quit. Boris Johnson quitting in the UK Parliament is a big deal. He's a leader of one of the major countries in the world. The Prime Minister resigning is a sign that there's instability in that country. Now, we have a similar issue with Trudeau in Canada. People have no faith in him and want him to resign. He has no signs of backing down. Biden in the United States, people want him to resign. He shows no signs of backing down. If all 3 of them resigned, we would have a major, major problem. It is a possibility. Hasn't happened yet. Doesn't seem likely to happen. But anything's possible with the way things are going. The other thing that happened is the farmers, Dutch farmers, are protesting because the government has said they want to reduce carbon emissions by closing farms and killing off their livestock, which to me is sheer lunacy. Makes no sense whatsoever. And again, similar to the truckers situation over here, a tragedy. Here in Canada with the CV, we're entering into wave 7 allegedly, and there's a call for mandatory 4Vs and boosters every 6 to 9 months. So that's not going away. And some people on social media are calling for the mandates to come back because they can't stand people thinking for themselves and making their own choices, apparently. Again, goes back to my body, my choice. So with this coming back, I just always had the sense that this isn't gone, that they're going to bring it back. So there's political upheaval, there's Georgia Guidestones, there's explosions, there's what is a woman, there's censorship, there's internet blackouts, there's a lot going on right now. It is very hard to keep up. It just seems like there's a switch. Seems like there's a ramping up. Not to mention, we've got financial problems. We've got gas prices through the roof. Housing prices are coming down. Stock market's coming down. Crypto's coming down, or has come down. I mean, this was over the last few months, but those are issues as well that we're having to contend with. Now, I'd like to hear what you have to say about what's going on in your area that ties into all of this. And other than that, I'm sure you're all doing well. Hope you're all doing well. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.